The rain hammered the tin roof of the old cabin like gunfire from a grudge long buried. But it was Ronan's voice that shattered Elias first. "It's over, Eli. I need more than this, more than us." 7 years of stolen sunrises and whispered promises in the shadow of the Cascades. And now this. Ronan Blackwood, the alpha whose scent had once wrapped around Elias like a lifeline, standing there with his broad shoulders squared, eyes cold as the Puget Sound, announcing his engagement to Jackson Hale, an omega whose fertile heat could finally give Ronan the air he'd always craved. Elias felt the world tilt, his beta heart, steady, unyielding, barren, cracking open like the thunder outside. He didn't scream or beg. Betas never did. Instead, he laughed, a hollow sound that echoed off the pine walls, tasting like blood on his tongue. Elias Crow had always known his place in the pack. Born beta in the fog-shrouded hills of Ridgewood, Washington, a town where the evergreens whispered secrets to the sea and alphas ruled the lumber mills with iron jaws and velvet growls. He'd learned early that loyalty was his currency, his bond the quiet glue holding frayed edges together. No heats to ravage him, no ruts to blind him with need. Just a steady pulse, reliable as the tide pulling at Cannon Beach. At 21, fresh out of community college with a degree in forestry management that felt as useless as a blunt axe, he'd stumbled into Ronan's orbit during a wildfire season that scorched the Olympics dry. Ronan Blackwood was everything an alpha should be. Towering at 6'4", with ink-black hair that curled at the nape like a challenge, and eyes the color of storm-tossed slate. Heir to the Blackwood logging empire, he moved through Ridgewood like a king among pines. His scent, cedar and salt spray, lingering on every flannel shirt and rain-slicked truck bed. Elias had been hauling supplies for the fire crews when Ronan pulled up in his battered Ford F-150, the bed loaded with chainsaws and water cans. "You the beta from Pierce?" Ronan had asked, voice rough as gravel, not looking up from the manifest. "Yeah, Elias Crow." He'd extended a hand, calloused from years of trail maintenance, expecting the usual dismissal. Betas were the workhorses, not the thoroughbreds. Ronan had gripped it hard, thumb pressing into Elias's pulse point, and held on a beat too long. "Good. We need steady hands out there. Alphas get distracted." That night, under a sky bruised purple by smoke, they'd shared a thermos of black coffee by the fire line. Ronan talked about the legacy crushing his chest, the family business teetering on bankruptcy after his father's heart attack, the pressure to secure an heir before the boards circled like wolves. Elias listened, offering nothing but nods and the occasional refill, his own story tucked away like a folded map. Parents gone in a logging accident when he was 12, bounced between aunt-uncles until he aged out of foster care at 18, scraping by on odd jobs and the faint hope of roots that didn't rot. By dawn, Ronan's hand had found Elias's knee under the tailgate, a tentative press that ignited something dormant. "You're not like the others," Ronan murmured, breath warm against Elias's ear. "No games, just real." They kissed there, tasting ash and desperation, the crew's distant shouts fading into white noise. It wasn't fireworks or fate. It was friction, two rough edges grinding toward fit. For Elias, it was the first time someone saw past the beta label, reliable, replaceable, to the man aching beneath. 7 years blurred into a rhythm as familiar as the Salish sea's lap against the docks. They built a life in Ronan's cabin on the outskirts of Ridgewood, a sprawling A-frame of reclaimed cedar overlooking the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Mornings started with Elias brewing coffee strong enough to wake the dead, Ronan lumbering and shirtless, muscles corded from felling trees, pulling Elias back to bed for lazy thrusts that left them both gasping. Afternoons were split. Ronan in board meetings, barking orders at suits who feared his alpha glare. Elias in the forests, mapping sustainable cuts. His beta calm a bomb against the ruts that sometimes left Ronan feral, pacing the cabin like a caged storm. They weren't married, not legally, not in the pack rights that bound alphas to omegas with bites and vows, but their bond thrummed like a shared vein. Ronan marked Elias with hickeys that bloomed purple on his collarbone, called him mine in the low growl that sent shivers down Elias's spine. At pack gatherings in the old Grange Hall, where fiddles wailed and whiskey flowed, Ronan would drape an arm over Elias's shoulders, thumb tracing lazy circles, daring anyone to question it. "Eli's my rock," he'd say, and the betas would nod knowingly, while omegas cast sidelong glances, their heats perfuming the air with unspoken envy. But cracks spiderwebbed beneath the surface, fine as fog on a windshield. Ronan's ruts grew sharper, his touches lingering on Elias's flat abdomen with a hunger that wasn't just lust. "Ever think about kids?" he'd ask on quiet evenings, fire crackling in the hearth, his head in Elias's lap. Elias would stroke that dark hair, heart twisting. Betas couldn't carry. Their bodies rejected the knot's promise, the swell of life. Science called it biology. Pax called it curse. "We're enough, Ronan. You and me against the tide." Ronan would hum, non-committal, but his eyes drifted to the empty nursery they joked about converting from the attic storage. The Blackwood legacy loomed like the Olympics on the horizon, heavy, inevitable. His father had sired 3 sons on 2 omegas, all of whom scattered like leaves in a gale, leaving Ronan to shoulder the empire alone. "The board's breathing down my neck," he'd confess after too many beers at the Driftwood Tavern. Ridgewood's dive where fishermen swapped tales of krakens and lost loves. "They want bloodlines, not betas. Stability." Elias swallowed the bitterness, chalked it up to rut talk, the haze that turned alphas inward. He poured more drafts, changed the subject to the Orcas sighted off Lime Kiln Point, their black and white bodies slicing the waves like hope. But doubt seated itself in the silences, sprouting when Ronan started attending those networking events in Seattle, galas at the Space Needle, where suited alphas paraded omegas like prized catches, their scents blooming floral and fertile. The first lie came soft, a petal falling unnoticed. "Just a quick trip, Eli. Schmoozing investors." Ronan returned smelling of jasmine and regret, brushing it off with a kiss that tasted borrowed. Elias nodded, buried it under spreadsheets of timber yields, but the jasmine clung to his flannel like accusation. Months later, on a crisp October eve when the maples in Ridgewood blazed crimson, Ronan brought Jackson home. Not as a colleague, not as a friend. A 24-year-old omega from Portland, with sun-kissed skin and eyes like polished amber, his lithe frame radiating the soft allure that screamed fertility. They'd met at one of those galas, Ronan said, voice steady as he set down a bottle of Pinot Noir. Jackson smiled shyly, heat scent faint but insistent, like wildflowers after rain. Elias stood in the kitchen doorway, dish towel twisted in his fists, the world narrowing to the way Ronan's hand rested, possessive, on Jackson's lower back. "He's helping with the expansion," Ronan explained, but his gaze skittered away, landing on the fern Elias had nursed back from wilt last spring. "Helping?" Elias echoed, the word leaden. Dinner dragged, Jackson chattering about his graphic design firm, his easy laugh filling the cabin like smoke. Ronan watched him, hunger plain in the dilation of his pupils, while Elias picked at his salmon, the fork scraping porcelain like teeth on bone. That night, after Jackson left in an Uber, too tipsy for the drive, Ronan cornered Elias in the hallway. "Don't look at me like that. It's business." But his hands trembled as he cupped Elias's face, thumbs rough against cheekbones. They fucked then, desperate and bruising, Ronan's not locking them together in a frenzy that left Elias sore and sobbing into the pillow. "I love you," Ronan growled against his neck, but the words fractured, echoing the rain starting up again outside. Love. It had been their anchor, but anchors dragged when the current pulled hard enough. The proposal came 2 weeks later, on All Saints' Eve, when Ridgewood streets glowed with jack-o'-lanterns and the air hummed with bonfire smoke. Elias was in the attic, sorting holiday lights, procrastinating on the quarterly reports, when Ronan's truck roared up the gravel drive. He descended the ladder to find Ronan pacing the living room, a velvet box clutched in his fist, face ashen. Eli. Ronan's voice broke, and that was the hook that gutted him. The plea in it, the prelude to ruin. Ronan dropped to one knee, not in supplication to Elias, but in rehearsal for the ghost between them. The box snapped open, revealing a ring of white gold twisted like vines, a sapphire winking like a false eye. "I have to do this," he said, the words tumbling out in a rush, as if speed could staunch the bleed. "The pack, the company. It's all collapsing without an heir. Jackson. He can give me that. A son to carry the name." Elias leaned against the mantel, the rough-hewn pine biting into his palms, grounding him as the room spun. 7 years. The scar on Ronan's forearm from a chainsaw kickback that Elias had stitched himself by lantern light. The tattoo they'd gotten in a Tacoma parlor, matching compass roses on their ribs, pointing true north to each other. Now this, a proposal not to him, but for him, a transaction wrapped in tradition. "And me." Elias's voice was steady, beta through and through, but inside, his chest caved like rotten timber. "What am I, Ronan? The placeholder? The beta who warms the bed until the real prize shows up?" Ronan's eyes flashed, alpha fire flaring. "Don't twist it. You're everything. This doesn't change us." He surged up, closing the distance, hands framing Elias's face with that familiar urgency. But the kiss landed wrong, tentative like testing ice over black water. Elias pulled back, tasting the lie on his lips. "Us?" he repeated, stepping away, the compass tattoo burning under his shirt like accusation. "You've been planning this. The trips to Seattle, the late nights. How long?" Ronan deflated, shoulders slumping, the box closing with a click like a guillotine. 6 months. Maybe more. The board's been pushing, and Jackson. He's perfect. Fertile. Sharp. Wants the life. He ran a hand through his hair, leaving it wild. "I fought it, Eli. God, I did. But the ruts, they're screaming for it now. For legacy. Legacy." The word soured in Elias's mouth, bitter as the dregs of morning coffee. In Ridgewood, where packs traced bloodlines back to fur trapper alphas who'd claimed the land with tooth and claw, legacy wasn't just pride. It was survival. Blackwood logging supplied half the town's jobs, from mill hands to truckers hauling fur to ports in Everett. Without an heir, the vultures, cousins from Spokane, slick lawyers from Olympia, would descend, stripping Ronan bare. Elias crossed to the window, fog pressing against the glass like a shroud. The strait churned below, whitecaps foaming under sodium lights from the ferry dock. He'd always envied that water. Endless, unbound, carving paths where none existed. "You love him?" The question hung, fragile as hoarfrost. Ronan's silence stretched, then fractured. "I care. Deeply. But you're my soul, Eli. This is practical. We'll keep the cabin, our life. Jackson understands. It's a union for the pack, not passion. Practical." The word ignited something feral in Elias, a beta spark that alphas dismissed as embers. He whirled, hazel eyes locking on slate. "Practical? 7 years of my blood in your veins. My hands pulling you from ruts that left you broken, and I'm the practical choice? Fuck that, Ronan. Fuck your legacy if it guts me alive." The slap of words landed harder than any hand. Ronan's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking like a countdown. "You think I want this? To choose? Betas don't get it, the pull, the instinct. It's bone deep, Eli. I knot you every time, but it doesn't take. Doesn't build. Build." Elias laughed again, that hollow bark from the night of the breakup, but sharper now, edged with shards. "I've built everything here. The sustainable plots that saved your ass from EPA fines, the crew rotations that kept men from burning out. I'm the beta who stayed when your ex-omega flounced off to San Francisco. But sure, let's talk building. Jackson's womb wins the prize." Ronan flinched, the alpha in him warring with the man. He reached out, but Elias sidestepped, grabbing his jacket from the hook by the door. "I need air." The screen door banged behind him, rain sluicing down his collar as he plunged into the woods, boots sinking in mud churned by fallen needles. The trail to the overlook was muscle memory, a half-mile climb through salal and sword fern, the canopy dripping like tears. Elias collapsed onto the split-rail fence at the top, chest heaving, the sound sprawling below like a vein of mercury. He pressed his forehead to the wet wood, sobs ripping free at last, raw animal the kind betas weren't supposed to make. No one to hear but the owls and the wind, carrying his grief out to sea. Back at the cabin, Ronan paced, phone buzzing with texts from Jackson. Everything okay? He ignored them, guilt coiling like smoke in his lungs. Elias was right. He'd been carving this out in stolen moments, justifying it with duty, with biology. But the truth gnawed. Jackson excited him, a fresh heat that promised completion, while Elias was home, worn in and eternal, the beta who'd seen his scars and stayed. Dawn crept in gray and grudging, finding Elias on the porch swing, eyes bloodshot, flannel sodden. Ronan emerged with 2 mugs, coffee, black as sin, and settled beside him, their thighs brushing in tentative truce. "I don't want to lose you," Ronan said softly, steam curling between them. "Marry me too. Or something. We make it work." Elias sipped, the burn grounding him. "How? You knot him, breed him while I play house. Watch your belly swell with what I can't give." His voice cracked, vulnerability bleeding through. "I love you enough to let you go, Ronan. But staying? That'd kill me slower." They sat in the hush of breaking waves, the swing creaking like a heartbeat. Ronan's hand found Elias's, fingers lacing, cedar scent mingling with salt, a ghost of what was. "Give me time. Please. Time." Elias nodded, because betas endured, because love was the longest rut of all. The engagement party was a week later, at the Blackwood estate on the bluff, a Victorian monstrosity with gables like clenched fists, overlooking the shipping lanes to Vancouver. Ridgewood's elite turned out in force. Mill foremen in ill-fitting suits, Omegas in sundresses that fluttered like flags of surrender, betas like Elias nursing beers in corners, invisible scaffolding. Jackson shone, ring glinting as he laughed at Ronan's side, his amber eyes catching light like polished wood. Elias hovered on the fringes, volunteering for bartender duty to keep his hands busy. Whiskey pours blurred into gin, the clink of ice a metronome to his unraveling. A cousin, Brady Blackwood, Ronan's slick-haired rival from the east side, sidled up, breath sour. "Heard the news. Tough break. Beta. Always knew Ronan trade up for a real mate." Elias's grip tightened on the shaker, metal denting. "Trade up? Nah. Just trading out the heart for the air." He slid Brady a double, no lime, watching the man choke it back. Across the lawn, Ronan caught his eye, mouthing sorry over Jackson's shoulder. Elias raised his glass in mock toast, the burn in his throat mirroring the one in his chest. That night, after the lanterns dimmed and guests stumbled to Ubers, Ronan found Elias in the boathouse, staring at the kayaks bobbing in the dark water. "Dance with me?" Ronan said, pulling him up. No music but the lap of waves and distant foghorn. They swayed, bodies fitting like puzzle pieces worn smooth by time. Elias's head tucking under Ronan's chin, hands splayed on the small of his back. "Remember Promontory Point?" Elias murmured, naming the secluded beach where they'd first nodded under stars, rut-fueled and reckless. Ronan hummed, breath stirring Elias's hair. "Best night of my life." His hips pressed forward, a spark igniting. They tumbled onto the dock cushions, clothes shedding like skins, Ronan's mouth mapping Elias's body with reverent teeth, nipping collarbone, sucking marks that would bruise tomorrow. The knot came fierce, locking them as Ronan whispered mine into Elias's skin. But in the afterglow, with sweat cooling and heartbeats sinking, doubt slithered back. "This can't be goodbye," Ronan said, voice muffled against Elias's throat. Elias traced the compass rose on Ronan's rib, needle pointing nowhere now. It's not, but it's changing. Winter clamped down on Ridgewood like a vice, snow blanketing the Cascades, turning the world to muffled white. The wedding planning consumed Ronan. Tastings at Seattle patisseries, fittings for tuxes that hung too loose on Elias's frame when he tagged along as best man. Jackson was gracious, including him in emails about floral arrangements, but his touches on Ronan's arm lingered, proprietary. Elias threw himself into work, leading crews into the backcountry. Chainsaws roared drowning thought. One storm-lashed afternoon, thigh-deep in slush, his radio crackled. "Crow, you gotta call it base." Blackwood. Heart lurching, he trudged back, stripping gloves to grip the receiver. Ronan's voice strained. "Jackson's in heat early. I need you here, please." Elias drove through whiteout, arriving at the cabin to find Ronan barricaded in the guest room. Fists clenched, Rut mirroring the Omega's call. Jackson writhed on the guest bed, sheets tangled, scent thick as honeyed smoke. "Help him," Elias said, voice flat, fetching cool cloths and electrolytes while Ronan paced outside the door. By midnight, the heat broke, Jackson sleeping fitfully, and Ronan collapsed into Elias's arms on the couch. "Thank you," he gasped, burying face in Elias's neck. They didn't fuck. Too raw, too real, but held on, breaths mingling in the lamplight. "You're still my anchor," Ronan whispered. Elias closed his eyes, the lie settling heavy. Anchors sank. Spring thawed Ridgewood in fits and starts, crocuses pushing through mud like stubborn hopes, but Elias felt the freeze linger in his bones. The wedding loomed, June, under a canopy of dogwoods at the estate, and rehearsals turned the cabin into a war zone of sample menus and seating charts. Jackson, ever the diplomat, invited Elias to brunch at the Salty Mackerel, a harborside spot where gulls wheeled and chowder steamed in crocks. "Your family now," Jackson said, amber eyes earnest over his untouched scone, his flat belly a blank canvas for the future. "Ronan talks about you nonstop, the beta who saved the company." Elias stirred his coffee, black and bottomless, watching the spoon circle like a noose. "Saved it? Nah, just patched leaks till the storm hit." He studied Jackson then. Slender wrists, laugh lines faint at 24, an Omega's grace that bent without breaking. No malice there, just the quiet confidence of one who fit the mold. "You happy with this? The whole air thing?" Jackson's fork paused mid-air, vulnerability flickering. "It's scary, the bites, the bond. But yeah, I want it. A family, roots." He glanced toward the window, where Ronan's truck pulled up, headlights cutting fog. "And Ronan, he's good. Solid. You built that in him." Elias's throat tightened. Built. The word again, like bricks in a wall that wouldn't hold. Ronan burst in minutes later, shaking rain from his hair, pulling Jackson into a hug that lifted him off the stool. Elias averted his eyes, the casual intimacy a knife twist. The bachelor party was Ronan's idea, a weekend at a remote lodge in the Olympics. "For the boys," he said, clapping Elias on the back. 5 of them. Ronan, Elias, Brady the cousin, begrudgingly invited to keep peace, 2 mill foremen, hulking alphas named Tate and Hollis, and a beta mechanic, Finn, who'd fixed Ronan's truck more times than Elias could count. They drove up in convoy, winding through passes where snow lingered in crevices, the air sharpening to pine and earth. Beers cracked at the trailhead, jokes flying thick as mosquitoes. Tate ribbing Ronan about finally settling down with a pretty little Omega. Hollis belting out off-key Springsteen. Elias laughed along, beta buffer absorbing the edges, but his gaze kept snagging on Ronan. Laugh lines deepening, shoulders relaxed in a way they hadn't been since fall. Night fell hard in the mountains, stars pricking the velvet sky like accusations. Around the fire pit, flames leaping to char logs, the whiskey loosened tongues. "To Ronan," Tate toasted, mug raised. "May your not bear fruit, and your beta, sorry Eli, find his own shore." The group chuckled, but Ronan's face shadowed, hands squeezing Elias's knee under the log bench. Later, when snores rumbled from the bunks, Ronan slipped into Elias's room, a loft with a single cot, moonlight slanting through the gable. "Can't sleep," he murmured, sliding under the wool blanket, body heat a brand. Elias turned, their faces inches apart, breath sinking. Rut creeping up? It was half joke, half diagnosis. Alpha's pre-wedding often frayed at the seams. Ronan shook his head, fingers tracing Elias's jaw. Doubt. The admission hung, raw. "What if I'm wrong? Jackson, he's everything the pack wants, but you're what I need." Elias's heart stuttered, a traitorous leap. He pulled Ronan closer, mouths crashing in a kiss that tasted of peat smoke and panic. Hands roamed, Elias palming the hard planes of Ronan's chest, Ronan nipping down his throat, teeth grazing without breaking skin. The rut hit then, sudden as a squall, Ronan's hips grinding with alpha urgency. "Not me," Elias gasped, arching, the cot creaking under them. It was frantic, primal. Ronan thrusting deep, growls vibrating against Elias's neck, the swell locking them as release tore through. They clung after, sweat slick and shuddering, Ronan's forehead pressed to Elias's. "I love you," he breathed, the words a lifeline tossed into churning sea. But dawn brought clarity harsh as axe light. They dressed in silence, avoiding eyes in the cramped bathroom mirror. Downstairs, the group scarfed pancakes, oblivious, Brady smirking over his mug. "Rough night, Blackwood? You look like you wrestled a bear." Ronan forced a grin. "Something like that." The drive back was tense, rain sheeting the windshield, wipers slapping rhythm like a countdown. Elias stared out at the blurring pines, the night's echo fading to ache. At the fork where their roads split, Ronan's to the estate, Elias's to the cabin, Ronan pulled over, engine idling. "Last chance," he said, voice gravel. "Say the word, Eli. I call it off." Elias gripped the door handle, knuckles white. Temptation clawed visions of endless mornings, hands intertwined over coffee, no boardroom vultures pecking at their heels. But beneath it, resentment simmered. The beta's lot, always second, loving harder to compensate. "You'd hate me for it," he said finally, meeting those slate eyes. "Resent the childless years, the what-ifs. Go. Be the alpha they built you to be." Ronan's jaw worked, a storm brewing. Then he nodded, once, and leaned across the console for a kiss, soft, final, tasting of goodbye. "You're irreplaceable," he whispered. Elias fled into the downpour, boots splashing puddles, chest caving as the truck's taillights blurred red. The wedding week blurred into a fever dream. Elias threw himself into best man duties, picking up the cake from the bakery in Port Angeles, a towering thing of vanilla sponge and buttercream roses, corralling groomsmen for photos at Hurricane Ridge, where wind whipped veils and ties like flags in surrender. Jackson pulled him aside one afternoon in the estate's library, bookshelves groaning under dusty tomes of pack law. "I know it's hard," the Omega said, hand light on Elias's arm. "But thank you for loving him enough to step aside." Elias swallowed, throat dry. "It's not love if it's easy." The ceremony unfolded under a sky bruised lavender, dogwoods shedding petals like confetti regrets. Ronan stood at the arbor in black tux, cedar scent cutting through the floral haze, eyes locking on Elias in the front row as Jackson walked the aisle. Radiant in cream silk, arm looped through his father's. Vows exchanged in low tones, the pack elders' chant invoking ancient bonds. Alpha to Omega, seed to soil, pack eternal. The bite came at the altar, a sharp, ritual pierce to Jackson's neck, Ronan's teeth sinking with a growl that echoed across the bluff. Elias watched, vision tunneling, the mark blooming red like accusation. Applause swelled, but he sat frozen, hands fisted in his lap, the compass tattoo itching like fresh ink. Reception spilled into twilight, lanterns swaying from branches, a string quartet sawing at hearts. Elias nursed a scotch at the bar, toasting with aunts and uncles who clapped his back. Proud of you, son, for standing by. Their words salt in wounds. Ronan found him during the father-daughter dance. Jackson twirling with a proxy uncle, laughter bright. Dance with me, Ronan said again, echoing the boathouse, hand extended. Elias took it, letting Ronan lead him to the floor's edge, bodies swaying to a slow Cole Porter cover. You're beautiful tonight, Ronan murmured, breath ghosting Elias's ear. The new bond scent, jasmine laced with cedar, clinging like smoke. Save it for your husband, Elias replied, but his arms tightened, traitorous. The cake cutting followed, knife slicing through layers as flashbulbs popped. Jackson fed Ronan a bite, frosting smearing lips, and the kiss that followed drew whoops. Elias slipped away then, to the bluffs, wind tearing at his tie, the sound roaring below like the beast in his chest. Footsteps crunched gravel. Ronan, Tuck's jacket slung over shoulder. Eli, wait. Elias turned, tears stinging. What now? A quick knot in the gazebo. Congrats on the air factory. Ronan's face crumpled, alpha mask slipping. I hate this. Every second. He stepped close, hands cupping Elias's face, thumbs brushing damp cheeks. The bite, it binds but it doesn't erase. You're in my blood. Then fight it. Elias's voice broke, plea raw. Claim me too, or let me go. Ronan's eyes darkened, rut shadows flickering. He kissed him then, hard and claiming, backing Elias against the stone wall, hips pinning, hands roaming under shirt. The world narrowed, salt wind, cedar jasmine mingling. Ronan's teeth grazing Elias's unmarked neck. Mine, he growled, not swelling against denim. They rutted there, frantic under stars, release crashing like waves on rock. After, tangled and spent, Ronan whispered, We'll figure it out. But dawn brought the honeymoon flight to Maui, Jackson waiting at the gate with packed bags, oblivious or kind. Elias drove them to Seattle-Tacoma, small talk filling the cab like filler words. At departures, hugs exchanged, Jackson's grateful, Ronan's lingering, fingers brushing Elias's wrist in secret code. Take care of the cabin, Ronan said, voice thick. Elias nodded, watching them vanish through security, the ache settling permanent as tide scars on the beach. Summer scorched Ridgewood, heat waves shimmering off asphalt, turning the forests to tinderbox. Elias worked double shifts, chainsaws whine a lullaby to insomnia, the cabin echoing empty. Letters from Maui arrived, postcards of palm-fringed beaches, Ronan's scrawl. Missing our trails. Hurry back. Elias burned them in the hearth, ashes scattering like aborted futures. Jackson returned glowing, a faint swell already hinting at the life within. Early, the doctor said, Omega magic. Pack celebrations followed. Baby showers at the Grange, blues and booties piling high. Elias attended one, gift-wrapped a tiny flannel onesie, the fabric soft as regret under his fingers. You're a natural uncle, Jackson teased, hand on his belly, the bump pressing insistent. Elias forced a smile, but inside envy coiled. Not for the child, but for the ease, the fit. Ronan cornered him in the kitchen, away from the chatter. Join us. Dinners, weekends. Like before. Like before. Elias echoed, bitter. With you two nesting and me on the couch? Ronan's hand on his arm burned. Please, Eli. I need you. The rut that night was inevitable. Ronan following him home, the cabin door barely shut before clothes hit floor. They fucked with the fury of the forsaken. Ronan nodding deep, tears wetting Elias's shoulder. Don't leave, he begged, post-climax haze sharpening to desperation. Elias held him, heart fracturing. I'm not the one who left. Fall brought harvest moons and harvest fights. Ronan and Jackson arguing over nursery colors, the Omega's hormones spiking tempers. Elias played mediator, beta neutral ground, soothing with takeout from the driftwood and bad jokes about diaper disasters. One night, after Jackson stormed to bed, Ronan collapsed on the porch steps, head in hands. He's scared. The bond pulls, but the world's changing, PAC's integrating, Beta's getting seats on councils. What if I'm dooming the kid to old wars? Elias sat beside him, shoulders brushing. You're not. Teach him choice. Like you taught me. Ronan's head lifted, eyes searching. Did I? Or did I just chain you here? The question lingered, unanswered, as leaves spiraled down. Winter's grip tightened, snow blanketing the bluff, the estate a cocoon of anticipation. Jackson's belly rounded, kicks visible under sweaters, Ronan hovering like a wolf with a lame cub. Elias visited weekly, reading forestry journals aloud to the bump. Your dad's a softy for sequoias. Drawing laughs from Jackson, soft looks from Ronan. But the ruts persisted, Ronan's control fraying, pulling him to Elias's cabin under cover of storms. Each time, the guilt etched deeper. Ronan leaving before dawn, scent clinging like crime scene chalk. One blizzard night, not spent, Ronan traced Elias's ribs. I want to bond you, officially. Polypec. It's rare, but possible. Elias stilled, heart thundering. And Jackson? He'd agree. For us. Hope flickered, fragile. Think on it. Really. Spring birthed the child. A boy, 7 pounds of squall and slate eyes, named Asher Blackwood. The hospital room in Port Angeles hummed with joy. Jackson cradling the bundle, exhausted and ethereal. Ronan weeping openly, alpha tears like diamonds. Elias stood in the doorway, gift bag dangling. A mobile of carved whales, suspended from driftwood. He's perfect, he said, voice thick, stepping forward to brush tiny fingers. Ronan's eyes met his over the bassinet, promise gleaming. Our family, he mouthed. But as Elias drove home through slush, doubt gnawed. Family or fracture? Asher's first months unfolded in a blur of midnight feedings and dawn patrols. Ridgewood's rhythms shifting to accommodate the air. The estate buzzed. Nannies from Seattle agencies. Pack elders dropping by with silver spoons and scented oils for the bonding rites. Jackson adapted with Omega grace, nursing in rockers by the nursery window. His body reclaiming strength while Asher latched with tiny, insistent pulls. Elias inserted himself carefully, uncle by proximity, arriving with diapers from the co-op and walks in the double carrier. Asher bundled against his chest like a heartbeat echo. The baby smelled of milk and new snow, his gurgles pulling reluctant smiles from Elias's lips. Got your dad's growl already? He'd murmur, bouncing him on the trail to the overlook, where the sound whispered lullabies. Ronan watched these moments with a hunger that bordered on reverence, stealing kisses in the mudroom while Jackson napped. See? It works, he'd say, hands framing Elias's face, cedar scent blooming with need. The ruts came more frequent now, post-fatherhood edge sharpening them. Ronan pinning Elias against the washing machine, not locking amid the hum of spin cycles, whispers of stay hot against skin. But harmony was illusion, thin as the ice on Pudding Creek come thaw. Jackson noticed first, the lingering glances, the way Ronan's shirts carried Elias's pine musk when he returned from site visits. One evening, after Asher's bedtime bottle, Jackson cornered Ronan in the study, voice steady but eyes storm-bright. What's between you and Elias? Really? Ronan leaned back in the leather chair, fingers steepled. Alpha Evasion Tactic 101. He's family. You know that. Jackson crossed his arms, the bond mark peeking from his collar like a brand. Family doesn't fuck in the boathouse, Ronan. I smelled it last week, your rut, his calm. On me. The air thickened, Jasmine spiking with hurt. Ronan's jaw clenched, guilt flashing. It's not, I love you, Jax. Asher, this life. But Eli. He's been my constant since before. Before me. Jackson's laugh was sharp, glass-edged. The beta placeholder. I thought we were building something new, not dragging ghosts along. Ronan surged up, hands outstretched. No ghosts. Just balance. Polybonds happen in packs. Strength in multiples. Jackson recoiled, hand drifting to his still soft midsection. Balance? Or betrayal? You bit me, Ronan. Promised me everything. Tears welled, but he blinked them back. Omega pride stealing his spine. Talk to him. End it clean or I walk with Asher. The ultimatum landed like felled timber. Ronan staring at the door long after Jackson retreated upstairs. He drove to the cabin that night, rain lashing the windshield, finding Elias chopping wood by floodlight, axe bites echoing his own fracturing. Eli. Ronan's voice cut the rhythm, axe pausing mid-swing. Elias lowered it, sweat beading despite the chill, flannel clinging. Bad timing. Ronan stepped close, hands capturing Elias's, calloused, steady. Jackson knows. About us. Continuing. Elias's stomach dropped, axe handle slick in his grip. And he wants it over. Clean break. Ronan's eyes pleaded, slate darkening. But I can't. Not fully. Bond with me, Eli. Officially. We'll tell him together. Make it a triad. The words hung a lifeline or noose. Elias searched that face. Lines etched deeper by fatherhood. Love still burning true. 7 years plus one of this limbo. Could it stretch to encompass? He'll hate us. Resent the kid growing up in divided sense. Ronan pulled him into the circle of lamplight, foreheads touching. Or he'll see strength, like I see in you. His mouth claimed Elias's then, slow and deep, hands sliding under damp shirt to trace the compass rose, north pointing to us. They made love on the porch rug, deliberate and tender. Ronan mapping every inch with lips and tongue, Elias arching under the reverence, not blooming slow as sunrise. Yes, Elias gasped during the lock, decision crystallizing in release. Bond me. Ronan stilled, eyes widening. You mean it? Elias nodded, tears pricking. For Asher. For you. For whatever this becomes. The bonding rite was whispered, private. A full moon night at the Overlook, where they'd first tangled years back. No elders, no pack. Just them. A beeswax candle flickering against the fence, and Asher asleep in Jackson's arms at home, oblivious. Ronan knelt, shirt stripped, exposing the alpha's throat. Vulnerable, trusting. With this bite, I claim you as equal. He intoned. Words adapted from old texts, voice gravel rough. Elias leaned in, teeth grazing the juncture of neck and shoulder. Not to dominate, but to seal. The skin parted clean, blood welling coppery. Ronan's groan vibrating through them both. Then Ronan returned it, fangs sinking into Elias's unmarked flesh. The pain blooming to ecstasy as bond flooded. Colors sharpening, scents intertwining triple now. Cedar pine jasmine, a new trinity. They collapsed laughing, then loving again under stars, the sounds murmur blessing. Telling Jackson came at dawn, over coffee in the estate's sunroom, Asher cooing in his high chair with banana mush. Ronan started, hand over Jackson's. We want you in this. All of us. Jackson listened, face paling as the truth spilled. The ongoing affair, the new bite throbbing under Elias's collar. A triad. He echoed, voice hollow. You bit him. After me. Elias leaned forward, hazel eyes earnest. Not instead. With, I love that kid like my own. Wanna watch him grow. Teach him the woods. But I love Ronan too. Have for years. Jackson glanced between them. Bond pulling taut. Hurt. Betrayal. A flicker of curiosity. And if I say no? Walk away. Ronan's grip tightened. You won't. Because you love him too. And this pack. It's bigger than two. Silence stretched, broken by Asher's babble. Jackson sighed, exhaustion etching lines. I need time. Space. He rose, scooping the baby, leaving them in the steam-scented hush. Weeks passed in limbo, Jackson retreating to his family's cottage in Anacortes, taking Asher for visits that stretched to days. Ronan paced the estate, Ruts subdued by the dual bonds but anxiety gnawing. Elias filled the void, cooking meals that went half-eaten, joining Ronan on night drives along Highway 101, headlights carving darkness. "He's processing," Elias said one evening, parked at Rialto Beach, waves crashing on sea stacks like judgment. Omega's bond deep, feels like erasure. Ronan nodded, head on steering wheel. "I should have been honest from the start. Not this. Half-life." Elias's hand on his thigh soothed, thumb circling. "We fix it now. Together." Jackson returned in July, sun high and relentless, Asher crawling on estate rugs with chubby determination. He met them in the garden, face composed, hands twisting a wild rose. "I talked to my therapist in Portland. Polly's not unheard of, packs evolving." A pause, eyes flicking to the bites peeking from collars. "But trust's shattered. We rebuild slow, no secrets, no solo ruts. And Elias, you pull your weight. Diapers, doctor's runs, the works." Relief flooded, Ronan pulling Jackson into a crushing hug, Jasmine blooming anew. Elias joined, arms encircling both, the triad tentative but tangible, cedar pine jasmine weaving. Asher's first birthday marked the turning. A picnic at the bluff, cake smeared on tiny faces, pack invited under the guise of family expansion. Whispers rippled. "Blackwood's got 2 mates now. Bold." But Ronan stood firm, arm around each, declaring, "Strengthen bonds, plural." Elias felt the shift. Beta no longer shadow, co-parent, co-lover, compass steadying the storm. Nights blurred into harmony. Jackson nursing while Elias read Where the Wild Things Are. Ronan massaging feet swollen from walks. Ruts cycled shared. Ronan nodding Jackson under full moons, Elias in the quiet hours after, or tangled threesomes where scents merged in symphony. But cracks lingered, fine as hairlines in glass. Jackson's laughs came easier with Ronan, touches lingering paternal, while with Elias, it was affection laced with caution. Hugs that ended quick, glances assessing. "You're good with him," Jackson admitted one afternoon, watching Elias teach Asher to stack blocks. The toddler's slate eyes, Ronan's eyes, gleaming. "Love him fierce," Elias replied, stacking another. "Like his dad's." Jackson nodded, but shadow crossed his face. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm enough alone." The words seeded doubt, sprouting in quiet moments. Fall storms battered the coast, winds howling through passes, mirroring the unrest brewing. Asher teethed, colic turning nights to battlegrounds, Jackson fraying at edges. Omega instincts demanding nest, but the triad pulling threads. One gale-lashed evening, after Asher finally slept, Jackson confronted them in the living room, fire hissing. "It's working, mostly, but I feel secondary. Like the air provider, not the heart." Ronan reached for him, but Jackson stepped back. "No. Elias gets your raw edges, the ruts without performance. I get the polished alpha, the dad. It's unbalanced." Elias's gut twisted. "We adjust. More time with you. Dates, just us." Jackson laughed, brittle. "Dates? With the beta who was here first?" It stings, Elias. "Every time you two slip away, it's a reminder. I was choice too." Ronan's face blanched. "Jax, no. You're the father of my son." "Exactly." Jackson cut in, voice rising. "The Omega who bore your heir. That's my role, isn't it? While Elias is the soulmate." The room chilled, fire's warmth mocking. Elias stood, hands raised. "This isn't a competition. I stepped aside once. Won't again, but won't break you either." Jackson met his eyes, hurt raw. "Then maybe the triad's the break." He left for Anacortes again. Asher in tow, texts curt. "Need space to think." Ronan spiraled, ruts hitting hard, cedar scent turning acrid. Elias anchored him, Nights of knot and comfort, but the cabin felt hollow, echo of old solitude. Weeks dragged, Thanksgiving looming without turkey or thanks. Ronan drove to the cottage unannounced, Elias in passenger seat, heart pounding. Jackson answered the door, Asher on hip, face guarded. What now? Ultimatums? No, Ronan said, voice breaking. Just truth. We need you. All of us. Jackson sighed, ushering them in, to a living room strewn with toys, baby gates like barriers. Over cocoa, words poured. Jackson's fears of erasure, Ronan's guilt over divided loyalties, Elias's ache for wholeness. I never wanted to eclipse, Elias said, voice low. Just be part. Jackson studied him, then nodded slow. Therapy for all three, and boundaries. No solo overnights. Shared calendar for ruts. Relief tentative, they agreed, sealing with a group hug. Awkward at first, then melting, Asher giggling between. Winter healed in increments. Joint counseling in Port Townsend, where a beta therapist unpacked pack myths. Bonds aren't zero-sum. They're multiplicative. Dates cycled. Ronan and Jackson to Seattle Symphony. Symphonies swelling like hearts. Elias and Jackson hiking Dungeness Spit. Sands stretching endless. Talks turning tentative to trusting. Asher's second birthday dawned clear. A beach bash at Rialto. Toddler chasing waves. Pack toasting the unconventional Blackwoods. Jackson pulled Elias aside by the tide pools. Anemones waving like flags. You're growing on me, he admitted, smile shy. Like kelp. Tough. Unexpected. Elias grinned. Heart lightening. High praise, Omega. That night, the triad tangled fully. First time intentional, not rut-driven. In the estate's king bed, hands and mouths exploring. Ronan nodding Jackson slow, Elias kissing tears of release from amber eyes. Then shifting, Elias taking Ronan while Jackson whispered encouragements, sense braiding into unbreakable rope. Felt like arrival, messy, profound. But spring unearthed the serpent. A letter from the board, forwarded to Ronan, concerns over stability. Whispers of the poly bond leaking to investors. Heirs secure, it read. But distractions could tank stock. Ronan crumpled it, face thunderous. They don't get it. Us stronger together. Jackson paled, hand on Asher's head. Or they're right. Pax traditional, investors spook easy. Doubt resurfaced, triad teetering. The board's shadow lengthened over summer, meetings in Seattle boardrooms turning combative. Suits from New York eyeing Ronan like a faulty engine. Diversify leadership. One droned, PowerPoint slides flashing charts of dipping yields. And family. Optics matter. Investors favor tradition. Ronan bristled, alpha growl under silk tie. My family's solid. Heirs thriving. Asher's the future. Elias, invited as operations lead, sat silent. Beta presence a quiet force, but inside, resentment brewed. Optics. Code for ditch the extra mate, clean up the image. Jackson, absent from these, Omega shielded from corporate fangs, voiced the fracture at home, over dinner salads wilted as moods. What if we paused the triad? For Asher, the company. Ronan's fork clattered. Pause? Like hitting eject on us. Elias pushed peas around his plate. Appetite fled. It's fear talk. They bluff. Blackwood's too big to fold. But Jackson shook head, eyes shadowed. Or it's reality. I bore the air, my role's tied to that. Yours, Elias. It's love. But love bends for legacy. The words landed like driftwood on shore, bruising. That night, Ronan rutted with fury. First Jackson, then Elias, knots locking sequential, sense clashing in the sheets. No pausing, he growled, but exhaustion hollowed his eyes come morning. Fall deepened the rift, Asher's preschool enrollment sparking custody whispers. Jackson angling for primary, stability for the kid. Elias conceded, Beta yielding space, but the cabin grew colder, Visits to the estate perfunctory. Story time with Asher, then retreat, Ronan's touches furtive. One November dusk. Rain sheeting the estate windows. Jackson pulled Elias into the library. "It's not working," he said, voice soft but steel. The board circling, stock dipped 5% on rumor alone. Ronan's fraying and Asher. "He needs normal." Elias leaned against bookshelves, scent of aged paper grounding. "Normal, Smith. We're pack. Messy, real." Jackson crossed arms, bond mark stark against throat. "Real hurts. I see you two stolen moments, the way he lights for you. It diminishes me." "Diminishes?" Elias stepped forward, hurt flaring. "I've changed diapers at 3 a.m., taught Asher his first trail steps. I'm not thief. I'm thread." Jackson sighed, vulnerability cracking. "Thread or no, it's tangling. I love Ronan deep bone. But with you, is gratitude, not fire. And that's okay. But not for forever." The door opened then. Ronan, face ashen, a manila envelope in hand. "Divorce papers. From the lawyers." Board pushed. "Amicable separation. For optics." Jackson paled. "No. From you." Ronan clarified, voice breaking. "They want the Omega bond intact, air secure. Me and Eli. Discreet phase out." Elias's world tilted, rage surging. "They dictate our hearts? Fuck the board." Ronan silenced him with a look, slate eyes shattered. "It's leverage. Sign or they pull funding, mills close, jobs lost. Ridgewood starves." Jackson sank to the couch, hands trembling. "So I stay the broodmare, you two play shadows?" "No." Ronan's voice firmed, alpha resolve igniting. "We fight. Together." But the fight splintered. Jackson retreating to Anacortes for Asher's holidays. Ronan drowning in depositions. Elias alone in the cabin, axe swinging till blisters burst. Christmas came gray. Asher's gifts opened over video. Ronan's hug through screen static. "Soon," he promised, but snow muffled hope. Winter broke with scandal. A leaked photo. Ronan and Elias at the Overlook. Post-rut disheveled. Time-stamped months back. Tabloids pounced. Blackwood airs daddy drama. Alpha's beta side piece. Investors fleeing like rats from flood. Board convened emergency. Ronan facing the wolves in a conference room of glass and glare. "Resign the beta," the chairman, elderly Alpha from Boston, demanded, jowls quivering. "Secure the Omega. Legacy first." Ronan stood, chair scraping. "Legacy's people, not stock tickers. Elias saved this company. Sustainable cuts when you suits would have clear-cut to hell. Jackson gave me my son. I won't carve them out for your spreadsheets." He stormed out, but damage rooted. Stock plummeted, mill layoffs loomed. 50 men. Betas mostly, facing breadlines. Jackson called that night, voice war-torn. "Asher asked for Unca Eli today. Broke me." Pause, breath hitching. "Come north. All of us, cabin in the islands. Reset." They ferried to San Juan. Snow-dusted evergreens greeting like old friends. The cabin, rustic, off-grid, forced proximity. Wood stoves crackling, meals cooked on propane, Asher's laughter echoing off beams. Nights tangled tentative, Ronan between them, hands bridging. But Jackson held back, touches sibling soft. One storm-bound evening, cards scattered on the rug. Go fish with Asher conked out early. Jackson voiced the poison. "I can't compete with 7 years. The board's right. I'm the vessel, you're the voyage." Elias set down his hand, heart aching. "No competition. I love you, Jax, for Asher, for holding Ronan when I couldn't. But if it's triad or bust, maybe bust's freedom." Ronan surged up. "No one's busting." Jackson met his eyes, tears spilling. "Maybe we are. I file for primary, you two together. Asher visits, pack shared. Clean." The word clean gutted Ronan, face crumpling. "You'd take my son?" "Our son," Jackson corrected, voice steel. "And your lover. Build without me dragging anchors." Elias intervened, hand on Ronan's arm. Stop. This isn't divorce. It's divorce from pain. To Jackson, you deserve fire, not flicker. Go to Portland, you're firm. Raise him city strong. Jackson nodded, sobs breaking. They held then. Triad fracturing to dyad, hugs fierce as farewells. Spring saw the split formalized. Jackson to a loft in Portland. Asher enrolled in Montessori. Weekends ferried north. Ronan signed board concessions. Elias, consultant. Public distance. But privately, they reclaimed the cabin. Ruts unbridled. Bonds dual now. Ronan Jackson co-parental. Ronan Elias eternal. But freedom tasted ash. Asher's visits bittersweet. Ronan staring at baby photos. Eyes hollow. Elias chopped more wood. Mapped more trails. But the compass on his rib pointed adrift. Summer scorched outs to blaze. A custody skirmish. Jackson claiming Ronan's instability post-scandal. Lawyers circling. Elias testified. Beta calm under oath. He's steady as Sequoia. For that boy. One. But Pyrrhic. Jackson distant. Asher confused. Where Unca Eli sleep? Fall rains wept for what was. Ronan proposing anew. Not ring, but vow under dogwoods. Marry me legal. Us against the tide. Elias accepted. Kiss ceiling. But heart whispered half. Winter solstice brought crisis. Asher fevered, hospitalized in Seattle. Flu spiking to pneumonia. Jackson called frantic. Ronan speeding south. Elias trailing. Waiting room vigil. Jackson pacing, Ronan stone. Elias fetching coffees. Hand on Jackson's back. Old instinct. Asher rallied. Tiny chest rising steady. And in the dim ward, Jackson broke. I miss us. The tangle. Ronan glanced at Elias. Please silent. Then untangle clean? Or reweave? Jackson looked between, amber softening. Reweave. But equals, no airs over hearts. Spring bloomed, tentative truce. Therapy resuming, boundaries redrawn. Asher's third birthday, triad picnic, no labels, just love in layers. But the board lurked, legacy's ghost. The reconciliation held fragile as spring ice, thawing under summer suns but prone to cracks. Ridgewood hummed with tentative normalcy. Mills churning again, stock creeping up on whispers of stabilized family. But the triad navigated minefields. Scheduled intimacies that felt scripted, Asher's questions. Why 3 houses? Met with age-soft lies about big pack adventures. Elias felt the strain in quiet ways. Jackson's touches warmer but watchful. Ronan's ruts splitting time like custody. Cedar scent divided. One August evening, after a pack barbecue where elders nodded approval at the modern bond, Jackson pulled them to the estate's gazebo, fireflies winking like conspirators. It's working, he said, voice tentative, hands clasped in lap. But I need more. Not just fire, like you two have. Ronan leaned forward, elbows on knees. What does that look like? Jackson met Elias's eyes first, vulnerability raw. You, with me, intentional. A night, just us, no alpha buffer. Elias's pulse jumped. Not revulsion but reckoning. 7 years loving Ronan. But Jackson, the Omega who'd borne the storm, laughed through teething, anchored when Elias drifted. Okay, he said, reaching across. Tomorrow, Portland. You, me, Asher napping at your folks. The night unfolded hesitant. Dinner at a Pearl District bistro, crab cakes and candlelight, talks veering from Asher's preschool antics to Jackson's graphic gigs, posters for indie bands, bold lines mirroring his spine. Back at the loft, wine loosening limbs, they tumbled to bed, slow explorations, Elias learning the map of freckles across Jackson's chest, the hitch in his breath at collarbone kisses. No knot, no rut. Just bodies aligning, jasmine pine blooming soft, release whispering possible. After, tangled in sheets, Jackson traced Elias's bite scar. Feels like cheating Ronan. Elias chuckled, low. Or completing him. Fall deepened bonds. Ronan joining a us date to Olympic hot springs. Steam veiling 3 bodies in mineral hush. Touches weaving seamless. Asher thrived. Slate eyes sparkling at storytime trios. Calling them my guys with toddler ownership. But Legacy's claw raked deeper. Board elections loomed. Ronan's seat threatened by traditionalists. Brady the cousin. Slick with promises of pure alpha lines. Campaign whispers vilified the triad. Distraction, dilution. Leaks to local press framing Jackson as enduring. Elias as intruder. Ronan fought dirty. Town halls at the Grange. Touting sustainable yields Elias mapped. Asher's photo on flyers. Future secured, family strong. Elias canvas betas, workhorses like him. Rallying votes with tales of fair cuts, no favoritism. Election night crackled at the Driftwood. TV's flickering results. Beers sweating on oak. Tally ticked. Ronan edging Brady by threads. Cheers erupted. Ronan pulling Elias and Jackson. Ferried in for the count. Into crushing hugs, sense merging triumphant. Winter wrapped them tight. Holidays at the estate. Asher tearing paper under tree lights. Triad toasting eggnog laced with rum. Ruts cycled harmonious. Ronan nodding Elias under solstice moon. Jackson joining at dawn. Bodies a knot of limbs and laughter. Spring birth change. Jackson pregnant again. Deliberate, triad choice, not duty. Ultrasound showed girl, Asher crowing sister. At the grainy screen. Elias's hand on the swell. Feeling kicks, heart swelling past beta barrenness. Family not blood, but chosen. But high tide pulls hard. June storm unearthed buried grudge. Brady, defeated, leaking old emails. Ronan's pre-engagement doubts. Eli's my heart, but Pack needs air. Jackson found them, forwarded anonymously, words searing. Confrontation brewed in the kitchen, rain lashing pains. You chose me for the womb, Jackson accused. Belly at 5 months, voice thunder. Not love, legacy. Ronan paled, hands outstretched. No, I chose you for you. Fierce, funny, father to my son. Elias flanked him, steady. Those words? Ruthaze, Prius. Doesn't erase now. Jackson sobbed, hormones amplifying hurt. But it taints. Am I ever first? The storm peaked. Yells echoing. Asher shuttled to ants. Culminating in Jackson packing a bag. Space. Again. Ronan begged. Elias reasoned. But Jackson left for Portland. Door clicking final. Weeks fractured. Ronan retreating to ruts. Elias mediating calls. Asher wants story time. Put him on. Board gloated quietly. Yields dipping on domestic unrest. Elias hit breaking. One dawn. Packing duffel in the cabin. Ronan finding him mid-zip. Going? To him. Us without Jackson? Half-life. Elias cupped Ronan's face, bite throbbing. Fight for the whole or lose it all. Ronan nodded, eyes fierce. They drove south, unannounced, finding Jackson at the loft. Belly prominent, Asher napping, face drawn. We're here, Ronan said, kneeling awkward before the couch. Not to plead, to promise. Equals always. Legacy's the kids, the land. Not bored bullshit. Elias sat beside Jackson, hand on knee. Your fire. To his storm, my calm. Don't dim for doubts. Jackson wept, then laughed, pulling them close. Triad mending, stronger for scars. Idiots. Both of you. The baby came in August. A girl, Willow Blackwood. Amber-eyed like her Omega dad. Crying lusty under hospital fluorescence. Pack gathered. Elders blessing dual bites. Board silenced by birth announcement presser. Blackwood family grows. United in diversity. Years flowed. Willow toddling after Asher on trails. Elias teaching knots. Figure 8 for ropes. Gordian for hearts. Ronan expanded ecologes dotting the Cascades. Elias VP of Sustainability. Jackson designing logos that branded green. Ruts wove routine. Shared, sacred, sense a symphony. Doubts surfaced, hormone dips, board jabs, but therapy tamed them, love the constant. On Asher's 10th birthday, fishing at Lime Kiln, lines cast to Orcus. Ronan pulled Elias aside, ring box velvet. Legal this time. You and me. Jackson too when Oregon catches up. Elias grinned, slipping it on. About damn time. Jackson joined, arms looping. My alphas. Dusk fell, family silhouetted against sound's gleam. Tides turning, bonds unbroken. In the quiet, Elias felt it. Not perfect, but whole. Beta no curse, but gift. Steady in storms, loving without claim. Legacy, not heirs alone, but heart's compass, pointing free.